I never thought a small domestic cat could become the reason I'm still breathing today. If you had told me months ago that a little creature who spent most of her time curled on my couch, cleaning her paws and knocking random objects off the table would end up saving my life in the middle of the night, I would have laughed. But everything changed on one specific morning, 3 a.m. to be exact, when my cat Luna jumped on my chest with enough force to wake me instantly. And that jump, that single desperate leap, was the reason I'm here telling this story instead of being remembered for something that happened while I was asleep. Let me start by saying this. I've always believed animals feel things long before we do. They sense storms, earthquakes, strangers approaching the door, sudden shifts in mood. But I never thought those instincts could extend into something as delicate and specific as sensing a medical emergency before it even fully begins. That night showed me otherwise. I'd gone to bed around midnight. It was a normal evening, nothing dramatic, nothing stressful, nothing out of place. I brushed my teeth, double-checked the front door, fed Luna her last portion of kibbles, and turned off the lights. She followed me to the bedroom like she always did, trotting with that soft, rhythmic tapping of paws on the floor. Luna never sleeps on my chest. She prefers curling up near my legs or on the side pillow. So the idea that she would throw her entire 6-pound body directly onto my rib cage at exactly 3:07 a.m. felt impossible, until it happened. At that moment, when her weight pressed down on me hard enough to jolt me out of sleep, I thought she was just being weird. Cats have their unpredictable nights. Maybe she got spooked by something or wanted attention. I was half asleep and irritated more than anything. But when I opened my eyes, everything around me felt off. I don't mean in a supernatural way, I mean physically off. The air felt heavier. My breathing felt wrong, tight, shallow, like something inside my chest wasn't responding the way it should. My heart was beating harder than usual, but not faster. More like each beat was struggling. It was a strange combination of pressure and stiffness that I couldn't understand immediately. And Luna wasn't acting like her usual self either. She wasn't purring. She wasn't needing. She wasn't seeking warmth or affection. She stood on my chest rigidly, leaning forward, staring directly into my face with ears pushed back slightly and tail low. Anyone who has lived with cats knows that this posture isn't normal. She wasn't scared, but she was alert, extremely alert, as if she was trying to warn me about something urgent. I moved my hand to pet her, but she immediately pressed her paw on my collarbone, almost pushing down on me. Not scratching, not hurting me, just steady pressure. Then she meowed. Not a cute little sound. It was sharp, insistent, almost frustrated, like she was demanding I get up. And when I tried sitting up, that's when I felt it. Dizziness, like the room was tilting slightly. A cold sweat breaking across my forehead. A sudden wave of nausea that made my throat tighten. I'd never felt anything like that before. My body felt foreign for a few seconds. Sluggish, heavy, disconnected. I remember thinking, what is happening to me? Luna meowed again, louder this time, right in my face. She leaned forward and tapped her paw against my cheek. It was the first time in years she had ever done anything like that. She wasn't trying to be sweet. She was trying to keep me awake. It was obvious. I swung my legs off the bed, but my balance felt unsteady. I took a few deep breaths, hoping it was just a weird dream or maybe dehydration. But the moment I stood up, a rush of lightheadedness hit me so strong I had to grab the wall to avoid falling. Luna jumped off the bed and circled around my feet, looking up every second as if checking whether I was still conscious. I know how dramatic this sounds, but I'm telling you exactly what happened. The thing is, I had been completely unaware of something going very wrong inside my own body. Something that could have escalated while I slept if Luna hadn't forced me awake. And waking me wasn't easy. Once I'm asleep, I'm practically unconscious to the world. My alarms usually ring for 5 full minutes before I react. But that night, Luna managed to break through that deep sleep instantly. I stumbled to the bathroom trying to steady myself. I splashed cold water on my face, but the symptoms didn't stop. The dizziness grew stronger, and my breathing felt tight, like my lungs weren't expanding properly. I leaned on the sink, staring at myself in the mirror. Pale, sweating, visibly not okay. And Luna sat by the bathroom door, refusing to move, eyes fixed on me with that same unnerving intensity. I sat on the floor, legs shaking. I remember feeling confused, trying to rationalize what was happening. Maybe I stood up too fast. Maybe I didn't eat enough the day before. Maybe it was just anxiety. But none of those explanations felt right. Something deep inside me knew this was bigger than that. And Luna knew it first. She paced back and forth in front of me, tail twitching anxiously. Every few seconds, she would come closer, press her head against my knee, then back away and stare again. It was like she was urging me to stay alert, to not lie down, to not drift into sleep again. I don't know how long I sat there, but eventually the dizziness shifted into a strange warmth spreading across my chest and neck, as if my body was internally overheating while my skin felt cold at the same time. It's impossible to describe perfectly, but I knew one thing. I needed help. I got up slowly, grabbed my phone, and considered calling someone. But it was 3 a.m. I didn't want to panic anyone. So instead, I decided to sit on the couch and monitor how I felt. Luna followed so closely that she bumped into my leg twice. She jumped up beside me, but she didn't curl up like she usually does. She sat upright, watching me. Several minutes passed, and the symptoms weren't going away. My chest felt heavy again, and breathing through my nose became difficult. I tried taking deep breaths, but each inhale felt incomplete. That's when Luna suddenly stood up on the couch and pawed at my arm repeatedly, harder this time. Not playful taps. She was hitting my arm like she wanted me to move now. She even let out a growling meow, a sound she only makes when something scares her. Her insistence snapped me out of that hazy fog I was slipping into. My body was telling me something was wrong. Luna was telling me something was very wrong. So I grabbed my keys, put on my shoes with trembling hands, and left the apartment with Luna crying loudly at the door as I closed it. I could hear her claws scratching at the wood as I walked away down the hall. The guilt hit me instantly. I had never seen her act like that, but I didn't have time to think about it. I drove myself to the nearest clinic, still dizzy, still fighting waves of nausea and that weird pressure in my chest. Keeping the wheel straight took real effort. At one point, I even had to roll the window down to get fresh air because I felt like I was fading. The parking lot was nearly empty when I arrived. I walked inside, explained what I was feeling, and they immediately took my vitals. The nurse raised her eyebrows when she saw the numbers. She called another staff member. They asked questions rapidly. When did it start? Did I eat anything unusual? Do I have a history of breathing problems, and so on? I kept thinking of Luna the whole time. How she woke me, how she refused to let me fall back asleep, how she pushed, meowed, scratched, paced. If she hadn't, I wouldn't have woken up. And if I hadn't woken up, I honestly don't know what would have happened. The nurse told me my breathing and oxygen levels were concerning, and something in my chest sounded not right. They ran more tests. They monitored me closely. Every minute confirmed that I had made the right decision by coming in. But the thing that kept looping in my head wasn't the symptoms. It was how Luna had known long before I did. She sensed something inside my body shifting, something I didn't even consciously feel yet. Scientists like to say cats detect chemical changes, hear irregular breathing patterns, sense tension in muscles, smell hormonal shifts. Maybe that's true. Maybe she just picked up on something subtle, something I could never perceive. All I know is that she saved me. When the doctor came back to talk to me, what he said changed everything. Not in a dramatic movie-style revelation, but in a quiet, matter-of-fact way that left me staring blankly at the wall. And that's where I'll continue. The doctor walked into the small exam room holding a clipboard and wearing an expression that wasn't panicked, but definitely serious. The kind of look that tells you something isn't quite right, even before a single word is spoken. He sat on the rolling stool across from me and began explaining what they found. He told me my breathing pattern had been irregular for hours, long before I woke up. Something in my circulation and oxygen levels had dipped in a way that could have gotten dramatically worse if I had stayed asleep. He kept his voice calm, reassuring, But he didn't sugarcoat the fact that if I hadn't woken exactly when I did, things could have gone in a much more dangerous direction. That sentence felt like a punch, because the only reason I woke up at all was Luna. I asked him how something like this could sneak up on someone without warning. He explained that many medical issues develop quietly, slowly, without immediate pain or obvious symptoms. You can feel perfectly normal one moment and drift into a dangerous zone the next. The body sends signals, but humans are notoriously bad at noticing the early ones. We ignore small discomforts. We sleep through warning signs. We assume we're fine. Animals don't. Honestly, the doctor said, adjusting his glasses, "You're lucky something woke you up." I almost laughed. Lucky. If he only knew. I left the clinic a couple of hours later, after they monitored me long enough to make sure I was stable. I walked to my car in the early morning light, the sun barely rising, the world quiet and empty. And all I could think about was getting home to Luna. The drive back felt like moving through a dream. Everything that had happened from 3 a.m. until dawn felt surreal, like my mind was piecing it together slowly, trying to make sense of it. But one thing was crystal clear. Luna had reacted long before I did. She had sensed something in my breathing, in my heartbeat, in my stillness, something that didn't feel right to her, and she fought to get me up. When I parked the car and climbed the stairs to my apartment, my hands were still slightly trembling. I unlocked the door and barely managed to step inside before Luna sprinted toward me from the living room. She didn't walk. She didn't saunter. She ran, fast, like she'd been waiting for hours, terrified that I wouldn't come back. She stopped right in front of me, lifted her head, and let out a sound I will never forget. It wasn't a meow. It was a long, trembling cry that was packed with relief and frustration and fear all at once. I bent down and scooped her into my arms. She pressed her face into my chest and clung to my shirt with her paws, refusing to let go. I've lived with cats my entire life. I've seen them scared, excited, angry, affectionate, but I had never seen one relieved. That morning, Luna showed me exactly what relief looks like on a cat, and it broke something in me, in a good way. Something opened, something softened, something shifted in how I saw this little creature. She wasn't just a pet, she was my companion, my guardian. The reason I woke up at 3 a.m. instead of slipping deeper into something I might not have returned from. I carried her to the couch and sat down, letting her curl against my chest. She started purring immediately, a loud, vibrating purr that echoed through my ribs, steady and grounding. And for the first time since everything had happened, I let myself breathe normally. Really breathe. No dizziness, no pressure, no strange warmth. Just air filling my lungs the way it should. I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't look at my phone. I just sat there with her for almost an hour, watching the light change in the apartment, listening to her heartbeat against my arm, feeling the weight of what could have happened and the reality of what did happen. There's something life-changing about moments like that. Quiet moments after a close call. You see your life differently. You appreciate things you never noticed before. You start paying attention. I found myself replaying everything Luna did, step by step. How she jumped on my chest with more force than she'd ever used before. How she stared at me, unblinking, unrelenting. How she pushed my face, tapped my arm, circled my legs. How she cried when I tried lying down again. How she followed me so closely it felt like she was trying to hold me upright. How she refused to go back to sleep until I left the apartment. How she cried when the door closed. Every action had meaning. Every moment had purpose. All because she sensed something I didn't. As the hours passed, the exhaustion hit me. Not just physical exhaustion, but emotional. I lay down on the couch, still holding Luna, and closed my eyes. She stayed right there, curled up against me, keeping one paw on my arm the entire time. Every time I shifted, she looked up at me, as if checking that I was okay. And that's when I realized something that I never fully understood until that moment. Cats don't just live with you. They watch you. They study you. They memorize your patterns, your rhythms, your breathing, your habits. They know you better than you think. That morning, Luna had noticed the tiniest break in my normal pattern, and she refused to let it slide. The next few days were strange in the most beautiful way. Luna wouldn't leave my side. Wherever I went, she went. If I sat at the desk, she squeezed herself between my arms and the keyboard. If I stood in the kitchen, she sat on my feet. If I went to the bathroom, she waited outside the door, crying until I came out. And at night, instead of sleeping near my legs like she always did, she slept on my chest. Every night, as if she was making sure nothing changed in my breathing again. I'll admit, that new habit made sleeping a bit harder at first. But I didn't stop her. I didn't move her. I let her stay, because she earned that spot more than anyone ever could. Friends who heard the story were amazed. Some laughed, saying their cats only wake them at 3 a.m. for snacks. But others told me stories of their pets doing something similar, waking them during emergencies, alerting them to hidden dangers, reacting to things humans couldn't detect. There's a reason why therapy animals exist. There's a reason why people trust animals with search and detection work. There's a reason why so many stories exist about cats and dogs saving lives. They sense things. They feel things. And on that night, Luna felt something inside me failing before I did. Over time, the details of that night stopped feeling terrifying and started feeling miraculous. Not in a mystical way, though I can't blame anyone who sees it that way, but in a very real, very grounded way. Luna did what humans have done for centuries. She protected her family. She didn't need instructions. She didn't need training. She didn't need logic. She just needed instinct and love. Months have passed since that night, and Luna is still the same little troublemaker she always was, stealing warm laundry, knocking over cups, sprinting through the apartment at top speed for absolutely no reason. But something between us changed permanently. There's a bond now that feels deeper than anything I've felt with a pet before. When she looks at me, I feel it. When she curls up on my chest, I feel it. When she taps my face in the morning to wake me up, I feel it. She saved my life, and now I see her differently. I see life differently. And yes, before you ask, her 3 a.m. jumping privilege is permanent. I don't care if she jumps on my chest every night for the rest of my life. She earned that right forever. Because if she ever does it again, I'll know she's not being annoying. She's being a guardian. She's being Luna. She's being the hero I didn't know I needed. And I'll never ever forget what she did for me. Thank you for watching this story and staying with me until the end. Your time means a lot, and I hope this reminder of how incredible our pets can be brings warmth to your day. If you enjoyed this story, consider subscribing and sharing it with someone who loves animals or needs a little hope today. Your support helps the channel keep growing and bringing more stories like this to life.